let's just think about one vital aspect of human lifestyle, which is the subject of a great deal of controversy, quite unnecessarily when you think clearly about it. Let's look at it this way. When we look at these foragers, they're living stark naked 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, under a tropical sun. And if this went on for eons, you can be sure the body came to rely on it being there. And if it doesn't happen, then things start to go wrong. And sure enough, we now know today that in the Western world, people are suffering massively from sunshine starvation. We now know, and the scientific literature is full of it, the various kinds of diseases of which sunshine starvation is a factor. Let's just look at this diagram. This is a picture of a house. You imagine you're inside, you're shielded from the sun, and you stay indoors. You just don't get any sunshine. These are the kinds of diseases of which sunshine deficiency is a factor. It's a factor in multiple sclerosis, a factor in osteoporosis, in depression, in cancers, in heart disease, in a whole variety of diseases. Without sunshine, we are undermining our health. Now, some of this is to do with the vitamin D connection. Yes, we're familiar with the idea that this is the sunshine vitamin. And even in today's world, people rely, their bodies rely on getting most of their vitamin D through sunshine. And it's important to get it through sunshine rather than through diet, which is what the alternative could be. Because vitamin D is actually a cocktail of various kinds of vitamins. In fact, vitamin D is more like a hormone, a pre-hormone. When you get it from sunshine, the body works out the right constitution of the cocktail and takes as much as it needs and rejects what it doesn't. Whereas if you absorb it in the diet, you can overdose on vitamin D, and overdosing can be just as bad as not having enough. And paradoxically, for example, it can also be a factor in osteoporosis by over-consuming vitamin D, for example. But more than that, sunshine has other effects too, some of which we're only just beginning to understand. We know, for example, that in various kinds of ways it supports the immune system, but it's not through the vitamin D connection. And of course, sunlight is something that we all need. It affects our mood. It affects the way we feel about ourselves. We are still tropical creatures. We still need that sunlight. We still need that warmth. Now, this goes against the current dogmas that have been preached for the last 20 or 30 years. And sometimes people say to me, hey, in Australia, for example, which was one of the first countries to kind of freak out about melanoma and to recommend that people put on sunscreen at every opportunity. And yet the figures for melanoma kept increasing. And the more they slapped on the sunscreen, the more they got melanomas. So they kept telling people to put on yet more sun cream. What they weren't understanding, what we now know, is that putting on the sun cream is more likely to give you melanoma. Why? Because the sun cream doesn't stop the rays that cause the damage, the DNA damage in the skin cells. And so people were going out in the sun thinking they were protected, whereas had they not put on the sun cream, they would have been protected by the sheer fact that they would start to go red. The alarm would go off and people then know that they've had enough. Now, there is a sea change going on. There's been a vigorous debate in the British Medical Journal in the last few years, where suddenly they've been calling into question the current dogma about protecting against the sun and about thinking of it as being the kind of Darth Vader of our skin. And now they're starting to say, hey, maybe we've gone overboard, maybe there's a role for sunshine in human health. But it's gone one stage further. just recently, just in the last couple of years, a group of the 7 major institutions in Britain, the Diabetes Association, the Cancer Association, the heart disease people, they've come out and put out a guidelines. They're saying to all Britons, we recommend that you get out in the sunshine at least for 10 minutes every day at the height of the sunshine at noon. Of course, in Britain, you've got to look for sunlight, but this is the point. What they're now recognizing is that the sunlight only does you good if you get at least 10 minutes worth of it. And secondly, that it really has to be the intense level of sunshine. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with, yes, we need the sunshine, but yes, we do have to be careful. Now, when I was a kid, we spent all of our time out of doors, winter and summer. We didn't notice that we were getting browner as the spring came through, and we didn't notice we were getting paler as the autumn and winter set in. It just happened naturally. We didn't get burnt, we didn't have to make a special effort. But today, we do have to kind of manage that because our lives are different. We go from house to car to work and back again. And then we have to get our sunshine. Well, yes, the message is get out in the sunlight whenever you can, but just be sensible and don't burn. But the reality is that the darker your natural skin color is, the harder you have to work at it. For example, African Americans suffer much more from sunshine deficiency than the average Caucasian.
Everything Geoff Bond says in these videos and a whole lot more is to be found in his book, Deadly Harvest. Check it out at www.deadlyharvest.com.